Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Search Podcast. I'm Elliott Manning, the Managing Director of Haydyn Recruitment. We are a rec-to-rec business out in the US as well as in the UK. Mixing up on this episode, I've got a guy called Haydyn Palmer with me on this one. Haydyn, I've worked with in the past. He's from London, but he's currently sitting out in New York. I wanted to try and change up the dynamics of the search for a few episodes and talk to recruiters who have moved out there and transitioned and, just understand a bit more about their journey and their transition. But Haydyn, I'll let you take away an introduction, mate.
Yeah, for sure. No, I appreciate that. So, I moved, like you mentioned, moved from London to New York about 5 months ago now. And I'm absolutely loving it. I'm doing a similar space over here. I worked in Android specific in the UK. Now work within engineering as a whole. I think we're going to niche down a little bit more. Loving it at the minute.
Good. First question, why? why the US? Where did this all come from?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm not, to be honest with you, it's just been like something I wanted to do for a long time. I'd always thought about the idea of moving abroad as a whole. And I'd been to New York a couple of times previous and had always liked the place. So it seemed a bit of a no-brainer. I wanted to move on from my previous company. And moving within another firm in the UK just seemed a little bit of a lateral step. I wanted to mix it up a little bit and decided to come out here.
Fantastic. But I've been just curious to know, when you've been to New York and had a couple of visits, but why not LA? Why not Austin? Why not Australia? Why not Dubai? Why specifically New York, if there is a reason?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like one specific reason. I think as a person, it's like pretty go. I like it to be quite in your face and quite intense. And I think New York pretty much fits that perfectly. And I also think it's like the fabled city, right? Like everybody speaks about it. It's just got like an image of grandeur, I think, and that's how I saw it in my head. And I wanted to be amongst that. I wanted to be involved in that. And on top of that, obviously the money in New York is just insane in itself. So working in sales and recruitment, it seemed a no-brainer to put the two together.
So when, obviously at what point when you was, I guess it's just more to understand about, your transition. So you've been working in recruitment, I'm assuming, a couple of years?
Yeah, so I think I had just over 2 years experience. Before I came over here, I'd just been promoted to a senior within my previous company. Not a huge amount of time, not like definitely not an expert, like a senior person at all. I wanted to build my career faster than I could do it in the UK and faster than I could do it in my previous company.
Absolutely. So fine. And you saw the realistic aspect of, as soon as someone says, I want to go to America and I want to work in recruitment over there, the way that the guys in your business at Harrington Starr, the way that they transitioned that from day one to the point of when you got there was, tell us about the journey with that.
Yeah, it was surprisingly smooth, the whole thing. I had built up in my head that getting the visa and all of that was going to be a hugely lengthy process and a difficult process. I think from when I sent you my initial message, to me physically being on the ground in New York was just under 3 months. The whole thing was so smooth. Which is massively facilitated by Harrington Starr itself, right? Like the day I signed the contract, I got an email from their lawyers explaining to me the next steps. And I think 2 days after that, all the forms and everything were completed. And then it was just a period of waiting to get that interview booked in with the embassy in the UK. Which is where the majority of the time came from. The whole thing was so smooth. And had that time been shorter between filling out the paperwork and getting the interview booked in with the embassy, I would have been out here sooner. Do you know what I mean? It just so happened to be that there was a slight delay on the.
What was the time frame
from the embassy?
From start to finish? Sorry, what from the point where you said, sign contract, let's go?
Yeah, I think from when I signed the contract when I was here, I think it was about 6 weeks.
6 weeks,
if not a little bit less.
I reckon that is genuine. I reckon that's probably the quickest I've ever seen.
It was ridiculous. I think that was hugely facilitated by Harrington Starr. They were just so proactive, so on it, and equally so was the law firm that I was using to get my visa. Communication was open the entire time, like outside of working hours and everything. And then, yeah, as soon as I got my visa on a Friday. Yeah. I think I flew on the Sunday morning. So yeah, it was just, ridiculous.
And there's a lot of people that have a mindset of, I want to go to New York, I want to go to America, I want to go here, there, whatever. Soon as the process starts and the reality of it kicks in, they kind of panic a little bit. And I think, and you can probably advise otherwise, you've got to be 110% made up mind that I'm going there and that's where I need to be, right? Not where I want to be, but where I need to be. Yeah,
for sure. 100%. I think one of the biggest things for me, which I was actively trying not to do, was overthink it too much. I think if you sit down and you start thinking about every single variable, both in the process of moving over here and in your initial months being here, then you're always going to find a reason as to why you shouldn't do it, and a reason as to why it's going to be a bad thing for you. And you can always talk yourself out of it. Whereas I was deliberately trying not to do that. I just accept it as an exciting opportunity and sort of leave it at that, and then let the variables I couldn't control take their own path. And when you're over here as well, a lot of those fears and problems you had just naturally mitigate themselves. It's never as bad as you think. Like the transition, it was much smoother than I had anticipated, and I had actively not thought about it. I mean, actually tried not to worry about it or overthink it or
just go with
have my concerns. I think from when I had my mind set up that I was moving, that was it. There was no going back. I mean, I decided that is what's going to happen, and we made it happen.
Fine. So you've got the job. Everything's gone smoothly with the visa with Harrington Starr. It's perfect. You're now in New York. Where's your head at? Ultimately. And correct me if I'm wrong in saying this, but you've kind of done something similar to this, if I'm right in saying, when you moved to London and you was living in central London. You're so you kind of. I know it's not the same, but it's very similar. The whole the concept, right?
Yeah, for sure, 100%. So I moved from Bristol originally to London. Again, that was an extremely quick process from me deciding I wanted to be in London. And I'd made the decision I was moving to London, so I started interviewing that week, got my job at the end of that week, and then just moved that same weekend. I was quite thankful that I had a couple of people in London, so I could stay with them until I found my own place, which obviously I didn't have over here initially. So I think the whole I think you just got to act on it quickly. That's my biggest thing. If you don't act on it quickly, and if you sit there and mull it over 1,000 times, like I said, there's going to be 1,000,001 reasons as to why you shouldn't do it. Right?
So you're in New York at this point, finding an apartment, finding a place to live, finding how it works to live there, and how to understand the way of living. How did that happen?
So the housing, I'll be honest, is by far the hardest thing that you. So the way in which the market works is, first of all, you ideally need a credit score, which obviously I didn't have. Being from the UK, I don't have an American credit score. You also, if you don't have a credit score, you then need a guarantor, which is somebody who earns 80 times your monthly rent, which is just insane in itself. And that process for them is very, very invasive into their finance life, which obviously, again, I didn't have. So then your options pretty much are spare room or a house share or a sublet, basically. And then when you get into that pool, you've then got some non-desirable living conditions. Do you know what I mean? Like not a lot. I viewed a lot of places that I just would not have lived in. So when I first moved over here, Harrington Starr gave me a hotel and accommodation to stay for the first 2-3 weeks. And then after that, I was just sort of going, because I had a couple of friends over here that I knew, so staying with them until I found my place. But even then, I found my place within a month or so. So as soon as you got your head around what you couldn't apply for, it just made the process significantly quicker, right? You just ruled out probably 60% of the market, and then you just targeted the 40% that you knew you could get.
And the time frame that it's taken. So, when was it you moved there exactly?
So I landed here on the 3rd of August, started work on the 7th of August. Yeah.
So since then, do you now feel settled as to the point where do you actually feel like you live in New York now?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. When I came back to the UK for Christmas, and I didn't feel like I was going home, which was quite nice. I mean, I felt as though I was coming home on the return journey. I think I also had concerns about meeting people, making friends, that kind of thing. Obviously that's a concern for anyone, right? One thing I was surprised about that was like the expat community in New York is huge, and everybody, there's so many people in your same situation. It's like quite similar to going to uni where nobody knows anyone, right?
You've got
So
to
everyone
go
wants
out
to
in
be
East
friends with
Village,
everyone.
right? And everyone's
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, for sure. So I was just going out a lot. I think you have to be quite independent in the short term. You have to be like willing to put yourself out there and say yes to a lot of things that maybe you wouldn't have said yes to back in the UK where you're comfortable with your friendship group. So I definitely went on some questionable nights out and met some questionable people. But no, for sure, I think eventually you find a group, and then obviously they introduce them to you to their mates, and then it snowballs, right?
Yeah, amazing. And in terms of like getting, look, so you've got settled now. We're coming to the new year. How's the market for the US been for you to transition into compared to the UK market of recruitment?
Yeah, so the biggest difference for me is probably the speed of it over here. It's the permanent market is much like the contract market in the UK. I think over here virtually everybody's employed on a 2-week notice period, if not less. These notice periods aren't, you don't have to do them, right? So from when you place somebody to when they start, it could literally be a matter of days. But it also means that they can start at another company, right, in a matter of days. Yeah. So you have to be red hot on it. There's no in the UK the processes would take, I don't know, average about a month. Over here it's like a 4 or 5 day process. It's the speed of it is much quicker over here. It took me a little while to get used to be honest. I worked the permanent market in the UK where I had time to think and time to get a shortlist together over a matter of days before sending it across. Whereas here you have a matter of hours, right? Like from when you get the job on to when you need to get the shortlist out. Is much faster. And then on top of that, a lot of the business over here is much more face-to-face and going out and meeting the clients, meeting the candidates. I know, of course, that's important in the UK, but over here, it's like a different culture with that. Like everybody wants to meet everybody before considering doing any business together, which was something I didn't foresee.
It's very relationship led. That's always been the biggest thing that I've always known and have experienced and heard from anyone that I've spoken to is the US is all about that relationship. And, you might go for a beer, you might go for a coffee, but ultimately it's about getting that face-to-face exposure, building that rapport properly, and kind of using that from there to kind of move forward. And that's just the way the US like it. And it works very, very well because it creates that connection, right?
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. I think that's what's going to separate you from everybody else, right? Like there's 1,000,001 recruiters who are at the end of the phone, and I think for me, I could have worked the New York market from London, right? If I wasn't going on meetings, it would have just been working funny hours and the time difference. But it would have been possible. In fact, there's like loads of recruiters in London that do work the New York market. So I think the value add from me physically being here is those meetings. Otherwise, there is no other mileage in me being here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And have you noticed and seen the opportunity financially in the US? I guess obviously that's why you're there, but have you kind of witnessed that yourself yet? And obviously from a salary perspective, you can see the candidates you're placing is far greater. And what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think I spoke about this a lot when I was in the UK because I'd hear of the fees and the salaries in New York. Obviously, I'd see exposure to that on LinkedIn and whatever from speaking to candidates. But yeah, it's just so real. Like the average percentage over here is like 25 to 35%. The salaries of the people I'm placing are like doubled, if not tripled. And then the speed of it again means doing multiple a month is significantly easier. Just given the time frame of the process, right? Like you can feasibly have a process wrapped up in 1 week. So yeah, the money is just so it's just not even comparable, I think, to the UK. And then on top of that, the Harrington Starr commission structure is just phenomenal.
Yeah, what the guys and what Toby's implemented over there is just is exceptionally good. So yeah, that helps additionally when you're placing these big fees and you're billing a lot of money. It allows you to make a lot of money, which is why you were all in this game and why you're there.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the what's the plans for you? Kind of what does the near future look like? Harrington Starr have done incredibly well to kind of put you where you are and to make that happen. So what's the next step?
Yeah, for sure. So I think this year the goal as an office as a whole is just to grow, is just to expand and to build. I think there's now seven or eight of us in the office. It started off last year as three, just Adam and then Pete and Caitlin. So yeah, just growth, I think. And by the end of the year, I see a couple more people in the engineering space, so that each of us can specialize in a bit more of a niche market as opposed to thin and wide, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's where I see the direction. Then just consistency, just increasing that consistency. So it's almost guaranteed, right? You're doing a couple a month as opposed to one a month and maybe twice a month if you're lucky. That's the end goal.
Good stuff. I mean, well, I was with the guys in December in the London office and heard all the plans for the year, and it sounds amazing. And there's a lot of opportunity for anyone listening in on this that wants to learn more about it. Just ask the question or feel free to speak to Haydyn, and he can give you the insight as what you need. But look, just to kind of wrap up, and any final thoughts, any general advice, any kind of last little bits that you would advise or suggest to anyone looking to go over to the States?
Yeah, I think to just sort of repeat on previously, I think just don't think about it too much. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously, do your due diligence, check out what you need to check out, cover some of your concerns. But past that, you're going to be fine. Do you know what I mean? You don't need to overthink it. You don't need to worry about loads of variables that are out of your control or variables that just aren't going to happen, right? It's so easy to revert to the worst case scenario in every situation. I think that's just so rare that actually comes to that.
Yeah.
I think, just don't overthink it. Just throw yourself into it. I think as cliche as it sounds, just don't overthink.
Good. Like it. Perfect. Well, it's worked out well for you regardless. Thank you very much for your time. I know you're busy and you're at work and you've got things to do, but I really appreciate it. And again, anyone that's listening in on this wants to talk to you, I'm sure that feel free to reach out. But it's been so interesting to learn and understand, I guess, your transition and your insight to that kind of move over to the US. We speak to, as you can imagine, a lot of people that want to do it. And I've spoke to many, and ultimately 50% of them just don't understand and haven't experienced the commitment and the, I guess the kind of, experience that you've had. But it's essential, right? Just sorry, one last thing, you've got to go over to the place you want to live. You said before that you'd been to New York a couple of times and you knew you wanted to be there. So, that's always a vital piece of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think being from London, had I not been to New York, my image of it would have been drastically different to what it is, right? I think how you see it in all the films and how you see it spoke about and all the rumors about it, there are differences. So I think it is important that you come over it first, you check it out for yourself and you see if you want, because it's not for everyone, right? There's definitely some elements that aren't for people. So yeah, I think experiencing it firsthand for yourself, spending a week here, walking around here, living it how you would live it normally is hugely important. Yeah, absolutely, mate. Couldn't agree more. Thank you very much. I'll let you definitely go now. Really appreciate it. And look, this podcast will be out in the next couple of weeks. So keep your eyes peeled. Yeah, appreciate it. Cheers.